Hello and happy Friday, and thanks for tuning in to RadioFreeRhinecliff.org and this show in particular. Correct me if I'm Norm. I'm your host, Norm, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Emma Davies. Yay!
Hello.
Who brought a cocktail.
I did.
And the discussion before we went on was like, oh, should we pour it now? And of course, I'm like, yes. Or should we wait? And I was like, yes, let's do that too. So we waited, and she's going to pour the cocktail while I read some tidbits
I'm gonna pour it.
that I found off of your mostly LinkedIn profile.
I didn't return your Facebook friend request.
Had you let me in on Facebook, the questions would have been much more personal
I'm sorry.
in nature.
Gatekeeper.
But the LinkedIn thing, it's like 18 pages of resume. It's so long.
And I'm only 21.
Oh yeah, well, you look great for 21.
Thank you.
Currently, here's what it says. Currently working as a freelance copy editor writer after working as a writer, producer, director for major British TV networks, BBC One, BBC Two, Channel 4, 5, Sky, as well as various U.S. networks and cable channels, PBS, Discovery, Bravo, A&E, Discovery ID, Nat Geo, TLC, and Travel Channel. And that's
Just a few.
And that's just like the one paragraph of shaking the cocktail. Is that not the most delightful sound?
So this is not dry January, obviously.
I was just going to taunt. I was just going to taunt everybody who's doing dry January with that sound. Now, this is a beautiful-looking, presumably adult beverage.
And it's a bit slow to pour. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So this is a paper plane.
Oh, a paper plane.
Are you familiar
I've
with
had
the paper
those.
plane?
I think I might have even made a paper plane at one point
Apparently,
in my
it's
life.
the new trendy cocktail of 2025.
Oh, well, let us know what's in it.
So it's everything is sourced in Rhinebeck. Cheers. Happy New Year. Chin chin.
Happy New Year to you.
So it's lovely and orange, isn't it? So it's got Amaro, I never know how to pronounce it. Aperol, bourbon, and lemon juice, fresh lemon juice.
Delicious.
Most of which came from Rhinebeck. Cheers.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very delicious. Most of which, was there some ingredient you needed to outsource to
Well, I mean, it wasn't
Catskill
like
or
all grown here.
Red
Obviously, the
Hooker?
lemons weren't bought here, but they were. Everything else I bought from Route 9. Am I allowed to say the store?
Yeah, absolutely.
Bottle shop. You know the bottle shop on Route 9?
Yeah, the bottle shop.
Yeah.
Because
It's a
you only
wine shop or
shop
the
at
bottle
places where the owner is named Emma also.
Exactly, another Emma.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Emma at the bottle shop.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what other Emmas are there in Rhinebeck where you can shop?
That's true, actually. I can't think of another one. Yeah, no, I think it's just her and me, right?
It's
We're the
just-
only Emmas in Rhinebeck.
So it's a diet, just booze. Well, this is great. So I read that thing. You had quite a career working in TV mostly.
Yeah.
Not so much film.
No, I've
And-
never worked in film. I've only worked in TV, or telly, as we call it.
Telly. And you did that over in jolly old England for a spell.
Yeah. So in England for, until 2002 when I came over here, basically.
Uh-huh.
So I worked in TV in the UK, and that was the BBC, Channel 4, all the stuff that
Yeah.
you very, very kindly just read out that probably wasn't very familiar to you. That was all stuff across the pond.
Right.
Then I came over here in 2002 with my boyfriend, and we were sort of like, I was slightly foisted on his company. So they hired him to come over here and make a history series, and he said, for PBS, and he said, I'm only going to take the job if my girlfriend can come too. So I was kind of like,
And how old were you all at that
Foisted.
point in time?
oof, God, that was 2002. So I was probably like in my early 30s.
Uh-huh. And,
Yeah.
and was he famous? How did he have enough heat to for that contingency?
Well, as his boss said to him, there was only one man for the job, like literally. He was the only person.
A bad negotiating tactic.
So he had enormous leverage.
Uh-huh.
So he could say, like, I got a girlfriend. She also works in
Yeah.
TV.
And I need
So
a
we were kind of
bowl
like
only blue M&Ms.
exactly. So we were like a double act that came over. We knew very little about American history, so the whole thing was somewhat ironic. But we stayed. It was a 10-month gig.
And you were both working on some history thing for the History Channel?
It was for PBS.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was. I think it was like a 10-part series. Then it was called History Detectives.
Oh.
And the premise of the show was you people in America would have a question like, was this trumpet used in the
Trumpet. Roxanne Pulitzer?
whatever used in some war or other, like what I'm now blanking on the wars. There've been so many in this
trumpet
country.
or a bugle or
Yeah, one of those. But what's the big war? What's wrong with me?
oh, World
The
War II.
No, not
was
the
a big
Civil
one.
War. There was the one before the Civil War. Over here, what was it called?
The Revolutionary
Thank you. I couldn't think of the word. Was this trumpet used in the Revolutionary War? So we would investigate.
Okay.
We had these hosts who were historical experts, so they would try to discover through various means of
So-
investigation
and-
whether this was a genuine artifact or not.
So it's Antique Roadshow-ish.
It came after Antiques Roadshow. That was like the fluffer to our show. It was
Right.
Antiques Roadshow led into our show.
Huh.
Yeah.
It seems strange. Because it seems
Why?
it seems very similar to Antiques Roadshow. And, if they,
Was
and that
kinda
was
similar.
PBS as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So if they had that, why did they need this other thing that's kind of the similar idea?
Because that's more of like a roadshow where someone comes in and
Right.
they'll give you a little bit of information, but this was much more of a story unfolding.
Gotcha.
So you would go and meet this family in wherever they were,
I see.
Massachusetts. Then you'd go and you'd take this object to some expert in
Yeah.
Chicago,
Right.
who would then send you to some poor person in LA who had to, help you with the investigation. So it was a little bit more. You take a bit of a deeper dive.
Meeting
actually.
historians in a dark
Yeah.
alleyway in
Ex-
Detroit.
Yeah. Those historians, they're
Tell
not
me-
to be
tell me
trusted.
about this trumpet.
I'll tell you about.
Yeah.
Well, there was one story that you'd really relate to actually because it involved a historical
Well, that's
marker.
kind of presumptuous of you. I don't
No,
know.
because you do the markers, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The historical markers. So this one poor family had this house which they thought was a Salem witch house. So they had a plaque that said it was a Salem witch house.
Ah.
And not all of these story outcomes were positive, right? So sometimes
Right.
you'd say it wasn't a trumpet from the Revolutionary War.
Right.
Or in this case, we've just devalued your house by several hundred thousand because it wasn't actually from the Salem witch
Wow.
trial era. Yeah. So there were times when the historical markers were, as you can relate,
Just made up. Who would
a
do
little
such
bit made
a
up.
thing?
Who would do such a thing? Indeed.
I love that. So
Yeah.
the house, was it like, this was built in 1971.
Yeah, it was like a prefab, modern kind
Yeah.
of bought out of catalogue.
Yeah, this was a double wide.
Exactly.
Well, what an interesting thing. I'm kind of liking the idea of following along the process and following the trail
Yeah, it
to
was fun.
uncover what these things really are.
Yeah.
And so you did that for how long? 10 months?
It was a 10-month job that turned into a 10-part series. So we came over for 10 months. That was in 2002. And we're now, 22 years later.
And how long?
We stayed.
And was that easy to stay? Visas and
Yeah, I don't think we were ready to leave after 10 months.
Right.
We just felt we hadn't really... I think when you come to the US, you kind of have like a bucket list of things you want to do before you leave.
right.
And I don't think we really felt that we explored... We got America out of our systems.
Yeah. And did you land in New York City?
Yeah.
And what were some of the things, if you recall, that were on that bucket list?
Usual stuff, but then it grew. So there's the New
Right.
York City bucket list, right? So
Right.
you do like the Met and you walk across Brooklyn Bridge at dusk
Right.
and all of that good stuff.
Right.
But then it's sort of like, well, I'd quite like to go and see the Golden Gate Bridge. Your bucket list gets a little bigger. Or, like I visited 17 states. What about making it 27 before we
Right.
fly back to London? You know what I mean? It was that kind of thing. And then my husband's career kind of took off, and we had 2 lovely American children. So then we kind of put down roots.
His career was propagating the species. Was that the job?
For him or for me?
You said his career took off.
Oh,
I'm
I
just
see.
Trying to
His
be
career
funny.
took off, full
Yeah.
stop, new sentence.
Oh, I see.
And we had 2 American babies.
Oh, good. And how old are they?
So now my oldest Eddie is 20 and my little baby Hector is 17.
Eddie and Hector is so sweet.
Yeah.
And what are they doing?
British names. So Eddie is a student at McGill in Montreal.
I see.
And Hector is a senior at Rhinebeck High.
Oh, wow. Wow. So
Yeah.
you landed in New York City. You
Yep.
crossed off some of the bucket list things. The 10 months turned into 10 parts. And
Yeah.
And what did you need to do to be able to stay here legally?
That's a really good question.
Oh, thanks.
I had to marry my boyfriend.
Why? But is he American?
No, he came over with me.
Right.
So when I say his career took off, like it really took off, and he got several Emmys. So he had like silverware. So we
Silverware, is that what you call it in the industry?
That's what we call it. Yeah,
That's
silverware.
hilarious. I never heard
So
silverware.
it usually like goes in the toilet,
Are they
in the powder room.
Are
You
they
have
on
the-
display in the loo? In the water
They
closet?
were in the loo. I love the fact you said loo. They are. He brought 2 out, and he kept 1 in a cupboard. We had a conversation about this yesterday. I said, "What did the third Emmy do that you didn't like? That you've only got 2 out and 1's put away?" But
Well, now you got to share. What was his assertion as to?
he just laughed. He didn't really answer that. Yeah.
Is
Didn't
that what
really
your
answer that
relationship's
question.
like?
It's a little bit like that. Yeah.
Huh.
We
Well,
got to the bottom
well,
of
if
it when we
you're-
did the historical investigation, but when it's personal stuff, we don't like.
Well, Tony, if you're
fully-
listening, more straight answers to straight questions, please.
Yes, thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
On air, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah. Is he listening?
He might, yeah, probably.
And your boys?
Older boy will be monitoring probably that I don't waffle, because he often tells me that I waffle. I'm not sure my younger one is going to listen though, because I think my voice makes him cringe.
That's age appropriate.
Teenager.
Yeah.
I mean, very normal.
So
right?
the older one, Hector.
Yeah,
or
Eddie is the older one.
Eddie. What does he mean by waffle?
Just that I just talk too much.
Oh,
Yeah.
huh. That's called being the perfect guest. Yeah.
I will quote that forever. May that go on my gravestone. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's good. Here lies Emma Davies, the perfect guest on
Yes.
Correct Me If I'm Wrong.
Thank you very much.
So you continue to live in New York City, you
Yeah.
and your boyfriend. You got married, so that somehow being married foreigners allowed you to stay here.
Right.
If I understand.
That is how it
That's
works. So we,
sounded like waffle
yeah,
to me.
no, that you perfectly explained it. So we were together for, we actually just celebrated our 8th wedding anniversary, which is not really a big deal for us because we
But
never really intended to get
Not
married.
really good at math, but
No, the
one of
timeline's
the
all over the map.
kids is 20, the other's
Uh-huh.
I mean,
The kids were at the wedding.
you were married before, and then you got divorced, and then you got married again.
No, we were not
Children.
married. We lived in sin. I know. Shocking.
Wow.
We got married when a certain person became president the first time.
Oh. Ugh.
My visa
I
was...
don't know why you got to bring that crap up. We were having a lot of fun.
We were getting on great before
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So we, without going too much down the immigration route,
yeah.
my very nice immigration lawyer in London said, yeah, it might be time for you to, get married. Like, I'm seeing the language in what's happening, and it's already changed. So this was,
Oh.
I think, the November before Trump became officially the president. So we got married in January, January the 5th, like the week
Of
I think,
2016?
the inauguration of 2016. Yeah, so is that right? Yeah, we've just celebrated our 8th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
But like I say, it's just it's just something that pops up in our Google calendars. We're not really big on, we don't do gifting or anything.
Oh, God
Yeah.
bless you. That's nice.
I'm a very, very cheap date, very, very low
Oh,
maintenance.
that's
As my
perfect.
husband will attest.
Well, maybe we'll get him in here at some point to actually attest. That'd be nice. So how long did you all live in New York City before you decided to flee?
So we've lived in New York City since 2002. And then we decided when my oldest was a baby that we wanted to get a place upstate.
And how
and-
did you land here?
So I had a friend actually who has gone back to England, and she was living in just north of Red Hook. And she said, oh my God, you should we were living in a tiny studio in Manhattan, and we couldn't really afford more than that.
Right.
And she said, oh, you should come upstate, you kids will have, assuming you have another one, room to sort of roam and run and all the rest of it. So she kind of recommended a few towns. And then the last town that she recommended was Rhinebeck, and she said it in a slightly pejorative way.
Oh.
She said, and then there's Rhinebeck, and it's got sort of like fancy restaurants and fancy stores. And
where was she from? Hudson?
No, she lived just northeast of Red Hook.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to give more specific.
What is there? Is that Elizaville?
Maybe,
Maybe,
yeah.
maybe there.
Maybe
You're
there.
not
Maybe
copping
close
to
to
it.
Elizaville.
It's like, oh well, Elizaville. I understand why you'd sneer at Rhinebeck.
So
But she
yeah, so
thought-
there was a bit of a sneer, and it was sort of like, yeah, there are stores where you can go and get like outfits to go out in. God forbid. It was a bit like that.
What does this friend do?
So I can't really. If I say, it's obvious who it
You
is
think
because
she's
she's quite well
listening?
known. No, but if I say, let's just say fashion adjacent.
Fashion adjacent.
Yeah, let's just say fashion adjacent.
Okay. Is it RuPaul?
It's not
How many
RuPaul.
How many more guesses do I get?
You don't get any more guesses. It doesn't
Rats.
work like that.
Vera Wang.
No, it's not very way.
All right, forget about it.
So I said to my husband, I listed the towns. It was like Armenia and, Pine
Millerton,
Plains and
yeah.
Elizaville, Redwood. And then the last one I said, Rhinebeck, but apparently it has like this, and this. And
little
my husband
snooty.
said, then boyfriend said, okay, we're going to start with Rhinebeck. To his credit, he was digging the idea of, fancy places where you can get a paper plane on a Friday night. And why not?
Yeah. Why not? What's the matter
Why
with
not?
that?
Yeah.
So you came up. You looked at all. I'm guessing other towns as well.
No, we only looked really in this neighborhood.
Oh.
And we spent one day looking at houses.
Where do you live here in Rhinebeck?
We live on Mill Road.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, opposite the waterfall near the
Right.
Goosey Pond.
The waterfall,
Little waterfall.
near the new bridge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right by that new
And
bridge.
it's a nice
Love
bridge.
that sparkling new bridge.
It's a
Isn't it
beautiful-
great?
Yeah, it's a pretty bridge.
Now that deserves its own historical marker, I think, that bridge.
It does.
Yeah,
Yeah. Would you help me draft one?
of course.
That'd be
I'd
great.
happily do that.
That's fabulous. So you've been in Rhinebeck how long now?
Since 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, but we only moved up permanently
I see.
last.
And did you
Last
move
year.
up to the same house that had been sort of your weekend
Yeah,
house?
yeah.
And
20
what
years.
What happened to the place in the city?
We've rented it out.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, we rent it out.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
And where is that?
It's in the financial district, which is such a weird place to live. But
Yeah.
we got a lot of bang for our buck there.
Huh? Like
So it's-
Fulton Street or Gold?
Exactly right, just off Fulton.
Fulton and Gold.
There's not an awful lot of a vibe there.
Right. No.
But when you've got two boys and you need some space, you want to get as much as you can with your money, right? So that's why we
Right.
ended up
Right.
buying a place in financial district.
Right.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so you moved up here, and were you still doing the TV producing and directing and stuff?
So I actually retired from TV production in my, I want to say early 40s, because the hours were really long and I wasn't really seeing my kids, and I kind of lost the joy of it a little bit. The sort of late nights and weekends
Right.
are a bit soul destroying, and I think that if you're a working mum and you leave at a normal hour, it's kind of looked down upon. So your career trajectory just sort of flatlines a little bit, because you kind of want to be, you want to be seen to be there crack of dawn and leaving at midnight. Otherwise, you're not really taking that seriously.
Ugh.
So, and I think deep down I'm a little bit lazy as well. Those hours were just not for me. It was kind of killing me a little bit, to be
Right.
honest. So I retired from TV production. And that's where I kind of like moved into sort of like doing a bit more writing, and then moved into doing Pilates, which is what I'm doing at the moment. I teach Pilates.
Nice. And what kind of writing did you move into?
So I did some copy editing. I mean, I'd done writing as a TV producer, right? Writing scripts is part of the job. When I retired, in inverted commas, I did some copy editing for magazines. I wrote a couple of articles for magazines. One was about Alzheimer's. Trying to think what else I did. I did some food writing.
Now you said copy editing.
Yeah.
Within like a couple of seconds of saying when you retired, inverted commas.
Yeah.
What is an inverted comma? How is that different from?
Because I sort of like, did I retire? Like, I'm not really sure. I mean, I guess I quit, really. Retired is not really the right.
But inverted comma,
word.
that's just a single sort of quotation mark instead of the two of them. Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
That. Is that wrong?
Well, that.
Oh, that. Single
Right.
fingers, not four.
Not double
I've always
fingers.
done that. Like bunny ears.
Yeah. Well, here's a question for the copy editor. When do you use the inverted
Oh
commas?
God!
The
So you're
single
talking about
versus the double.
Yeah, no. I was not that good at grammar. I was not like that kind of copy editor. Mine was more like rewriting. Oops, sorry, hit the mic. Rewriting.
I see.
Copy. And if I saw occasional grammatical errors like that, then I would correct them. But that, like two fingers, one finger, no, you'd kind of lose me now. I'm
The
not that
bunny
much.
ears quotation marks versus the middle finger.
Exactly.
Inverted commas, I guess.
No, that one I've got no issue with.
Oh, yeah. But in England, you do the double thing. You don't just
We do the two fingers.
You don't do the middle.
Which is F off.
Yeah.
But then the single finger as well, which is also F off. It's confusing.
And where did the double fingers, the V
I think
sign,
it was
come
Winston
from?
Churchill. But then it got a little bit...
He invented that?
When
Meaning
he did it, it was
fuck off?
victory. I don't think he was saying fuck off.
Oh.
When he got out of his Daimler or whatever and was doing that to the,
Right.
World War II, like, Londoners, that was V for victory.
And people took it as like fuck off Germans?
No, I think it just became fuck off. But I don't even think it was related to the Germans.
Right.
I don't know I don't know how that... You know who would know? My younger son would know because he knows everything about history. But he's not here to ask.
And he's not even going to be listening.
And he's not even going to be listening. But maybe I can ask him and email you.
Come on, Hector. I'm going to share the story I heard was that way back when England was at war with France, they had archers. And the French would capture the English archers. They would cut off one of those two fingers that you needed to pull the bowstring back and hold the arrow, and cut off one so the archers could no longer, shoot arrows.
So I have heard that story as well.
It's a great story.
It's a great story. But I don't know then if that's true, because why would Winston Churchill go like that?
Well, he was a bawdy fellow. Oh, what does that mean?
Wait, he was
the,
a what?
The peanut gallery has jumped in.
He was a what fellow?
Bawdy.
Oh, bawdy.
Yeah.
Bawdy.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
Water.
Yeah.
Bawdy. Yeah.
Yeah. Right? He was known to
Was he?
Yeah, crack a dirty joke, be a little bit bawdy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely would crack jokes. I don't know how bawdy he was, though. I mean, he wasn't like... again, need to consult with my 17-year-old on this.
Huh. And so are either your boys really into sort of where their parents came from? Are they into England and English history and all that stuff?
I would say that my younger one is really into history. Not necessarily British English history, but more like French history, but he's also into philosophy as well. My oldest is really into football or soccer. So he's a big Liverpool FC supporter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
So he likes, I think, British culture, but it's mostly the sort of soccer culture part of British culture.
I'm going to share a story from my boy, my youngest, who's 21 now. We were at the post office, I don't know, like 7-8 years ago here in Rhinebeck, and he was all decked up in his Chelsea kit. He had this
Chelsea.
Scarf and
Why did I come on this
jersey.
show? Why did I come on this show?
I don't know. But so then some English guy, maybe it was your husband. No, it wasn't. Some English guy was in front of us in line, and he looks back. He says, "Oh, Chelsea fan, huh?" And my kid is like 8th grade. He was like 14 or 13 or something. And my boy Moss, he says, yeah, I like Chelsea. And the English guy says, "Oh, I'm a Liverpool fan."
It's probably my husband.
Without missing a beat, my boy says, "You know the difference between a mosquito and Liverpool?" And the guy says, "No, what?" And my boy, bless his heart, says, "A mosquito can stop sucking."
Oh.
I'm like, oh boy, you've done me so proud.
I'm going to be looking out for that little boy, 21-year-old boy.
I'll tell you where to find him. Yeah. But I mean,
how are Chelsea doing at the moment in the league? Just curious, asking, just a quick question.
Well, I'm not curious at all.
Okay.
I don't follow any of that stuff.
You don't.
I don't follow American sports.
But Liverpool are doing pretty well in the league at the moment.
That's great.
Maybe tell your son.
I am so
number one. They're actually number. Just casually mention it to him.
Because he's not listening.
Oh wait, was that a mosquito?
Well, that's good. So you follow this stuff.
Yeah, we do. We're all kind of big Liverpool FC supporters. I mean, I follow it because they follow it, but they're like massively into Liverpool. They've been to Anfield several times.
Now you say Liverpool FC, which means football club, right?
Correct, yeah.
Why do you have to add the FC?
Oh.
I mean, are there other Liverpool things? We follow
Liverpool is a
Liverpool.
town, so if you just said Liverpool...
But we're talking about football.
Yeah. Again, another
But
good
people-
question
but
from you,
people
Norm.
do.
Maybe there's an Archer-related answer. I don't know.
I bet Winston Churchill said that
Winston
one.
would know.
Yeah, he
Winston
always
would
said
know.
FC.
Yeah, Chelsea are Chelsea FC. I mean, actually, no, Man United are just Man United, aren't they? That's a good question as well. I don't know the answer to that, sorry.
Uh-huh.
But I'm just thinking
about-
it's like the difference between Liverpool the town and Liverpool the city, rather, and Liverpool the football club. So
And
if you
how-
talk about Liverpool, you're differentiating between
But you
the
all
two.
weren't from Liverpool. How did you become Liverpool fans?
Well, so my husband is from London, and he did it just to spite his family, who are all Arsenal supporters.
Oh.
North London team.
Wow.
I can fully justify it because my mother was from Liverpool.
Oh.
So
And
I can be the absolutely genuine Liverpool supporter,
I have
whereas they're
one-
kind of pretenders to the throne. A
I
little
have
bit.
one friend from Liverpool. He's in Everton.
Yeah,
fan.
Everton's a great team. So my lovely gay husband, Sean,
Your
is
lovely
who
what?
lives in Liverpool. He is an Evertonian as well.
Oh,
He'll be very happy that I've given him a little shout out as well.
yeah. Shout out for Everton. And
Yeah.
Sean.
And Sean.
He's
bless him.
certainly listening.
Yeah, most certainly.
So you came up here, you retired. You
With
mo-
the double or the single
yeah,
quotation marks.
inverted commas. And you had you moved up with 2 kids?
No, moved up when Eddie was a baby.
Okay.
And then Hector came 2.5 years later.
I love that name so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, thank you. We love it too.
Yeah. There's a restaurant in the meatpacking district down there in New York City.
I know
called
it, on the
Hector's.
corner.
Yeah.
Hector's Diner.
Yeah, we used to go there
Know it well.
back in the day.
He was actually named after that diner.
No.
No, he wasn't.
He
He was named after the Iliad, Hector.
Oh.
Yeah. But also, my husband was reading an article and it mentioned that Maradona's physician was called Hector. So that was another reason to call him Hector. Also, there's a very good song by Morrissey of the Smiths which mentions a Hector in the song,
Huh.
which is called Last of the Gang.
Can you sing a few bars?
Yeah, but I'm not going to.
Oh.
I could sing the whole song for you, but I won't.
Oh, come on. Just
no,
give
I'm
us
not
a
gonna
little
do
bit.
that. I've only had like half of a paper plane.
Well, Cusack,
All
come
right,
on.
I'll pull myself. Maybe I'll be singing by the end. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. And are you a Morrissey fan? Do you still listen to sort of all the old English music from your
I
youth?
am a big Smiths fan. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
big Smiths and big Morrissey fan. I'm slightly gone off Morrissey since he's gone a little bit kind of like National Front, right wing,
Oh,
kind of
he
weird.
has?
Yeah, he's gone.
How is
His
that
politics
even
have gone a bit strange.
Possible.
I don't know.
I mean,
don't know. It's very strange.
he's gay, right?
Uh,
He was
asexual,
at one point.
he would say, but I think
asexual.
gay. Yeah,
Okay,
he's
or
gay. He's
unisexual
definitely
or
gay.
whatever.
I'm shaking again. So.
But whatever he is, it's not a traditional sort of like gender role.
No, he's not like he's never got married.
And
or...
the conservatives are not usually friendly to that kind of person.
True, very true.
Oh, anyway, I don't want to hear any more about Morrissey going conservative. One of my favorite musicians, Exene Cervenka, from the band X, has become a huge trumper. Look at everybody shaking.
I don't know
their
who.
head.
Wait, from which band?
I know. I talk to you youngsters all the time. This band named X, and they hit in like 1979 when you were 2. I was like 19, and
Okay.
and they were unlike anything I'd ever heard before, and they're still touring, but they were just amazing, and it's super punk rock, new wave kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And she was like the poster child for just punk attitude and
What was her
and
name?
coolness. X, just the letter X.
Oh, that was the name of the
Band.
female singer and the band.
No, her name was Exene.
Oh, Exene.
Exene. Exene Cervenka.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Was this kind of New York Dolls era? Punk?
They were LA, but yeah, that era.
So the Smiths were influenced by the New York Dolls. That's why I mentioned.
I see.
Yeah.
But still, another like really sort of cutting edge punk rock person who like went conservative
Oh no.
in her old age.
Yeah, that's really sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know what happens. I don't know where you go. Like you start off kind of, you get, I guess, a little bit disillusioned, and that's what makes you become like that. I don't know.
I don't know.
It makes me sad that the kind of heroes of my youth have slightly, sold out a little bit
Yeah.
in middle age.
Yeah.
Apparently, we all get a little bit more conservative as we get older. Like, I was much, much more left-wing when I was 17, 18. Like,
Oh, yeah.
people's parents used to call me a red-lipped communist when I was a teenager.
Oh, that's cute. And
But now I'm probably more sort of like centrist, you know?
And you were a teenager in Worcestershire.
Oh, I love the way you said that. Can I hear you say that again?
Worcestershire?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. You nailed it the second time.
Worcestershire.
I'm getting you back for the quotation mark thing.
And Upton on Severn.
Yes.
And it was a tiny little town, like half the size of Rhinebeck.
It was a tiny town, probably about the same size as Rhinebeck.
Uh-huh.
On a river, so I've always lived
Severn.
near rivers. So that was the Severn River. And then I lived on the Thames. And now I live on the Hudson. So I've always been quite comfortable living next to rivers. But the Severn used to flood our house. That was kind of a nightmare. My parents ran a pub and we lived above it. And they ran that pub for
what was the pub
30
called?
odd years. It was called the Swan Inn.
Swan Inn.
Yes. And yeah, the river used to flood the banks, come into the pub. We used to sometimes go down in our pajamas and our like welly boots to get our breakfast in the morning before school. That happened like several times. It was kind of
Wait, you lived above the pub?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Our bedrooms were above the pub. The pub was in the ground floor. My dad ran the pub. My mum ran the restaurant.
Right. And so there must have been casks in the basement and stuff.
Yeah.
And were those just ruined or?
No, I think the casks are fine. It's just the furniture that gets, ruined. Like carpets have to come up and tables have to go on, risers and stuff. And you've got to do it because the river kind of comes up pretty quick.
And you had siblings there?
I did.
How many of them?
3.
You had 3. So there were
3 siblings, 2 sisters and an older brother.
6 people in that house.
Yeah, it wasn't really a house. It was more like
above the pub.
Yeah, it was 12 derelict fishermen's cottages that got knocked into this weird sort of labyrinthine building of collection of things.
Or your
There
folks.
was one room that had a ceiling when my parents moved in. It was derelict and they shared it with feral cats. Yeah, it wasn't great.
And what were your parents doing before they moved into this?
So my mum had a job that she proselytized our whole lives. You would have thought this job was like the career of all careers. Because whenever my job as a TV producer was going a little bit kind of, what you like when you're freelance, you're not always employed, she would always turn to me and say, have you ever thought of being, and this is the job that she had done, a hotel receptionist, which she thought was like the best job in the world. So she left school at 12.
Love that.
Yeah. So she always thought like, yeah, it's TV producing. It sounds like it's okay, but if you really want to hit the big leagues, maybe you want to think about becoming a hotel receptionist. Yeah.
I love that. And did you and your siblings sort of like joke about that?
We just kind of eye-rolled. Actually, I was still getting that career advice from her in my 30s when I'd already made like a few, single docs for BBC and Channel 4, and my boyfriend, now husband, said to her when she suggested this hotel receptionist job, like, your daughter's actually got quite a good career in TV production. So she left school at 12, became a hotel receptionist, and then became a cook. And my dad went to university and got kicked out after his first year. He was forced by his parents to study engineering and he hated it, so he dropped out. So they were both kind of like 2 young kids with no qualifications, really.
And they met up somewhere.
They met in the hotel where my mum was
the receptionist.
doing her amazing career as a receptionist, living her best life as a hotel receptionist. And my dad just kind of fell in love with her.
Right.
And sort of courted her. And then they got married, and then and my mum's family were poor in Liverpool. Her father worked in the docks. Like, my dad's family from Wales gave them £1,000 as a honeymoon gift. And that was a lot of money. And they bought the Swan with that, which was 11 derelict cottages and one room with a ceiling.
And he had, a year of engineering under his belt, and she was in the hospitality business.
What could go wrong, right?
Yeah.
Nothing.
No.
Neither of them could, do any carpentry or anything. Actually, my dad's engineering, 1 year of engineering, meant that he could rewire, and he did rewire the whole house. But what that meant was that when you switched things on, they were on at the light switch. And when you switch the light switch off, they were still on. So for 38 years, my mum thought we were all going to fry in our beds because of this really dodgy wiring that he'd done to the whole...
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So are they still here with us in this?
No, unfortunately, they both died during COVID, Mum and Dad. Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's tough.
Great.
And what happened to the Swan?
So it's still a pub. They sold it. They retired. They
Okay.
properly retired. No funny quotation marks around that. They properly, fully retired. But what they did was they moved into a house next door.
It was not part of the Fisherman's Cottage.
It was. They just kept a little bit of the pub for themselves, and they just moved into that. Yeah. They were very attached to that derelict.
And what did they do in their retirement?
What did they do?
Yeah.
What did they do? They didn't really do an awful lot. They didn't do the mega traveling that a lot of retirees do.
Right.
My mum got Alzheimer's, so my dad was kind of stuck at home with her for a bit, and then she went into a retirement home. They sort of did a few trips to Europe, but they were kind of homebods. Honestly, they didn't really want to do I think they visited me once here in 10 years. One visit in 10 years. They were not big on traveling.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. When's the last time you were at the Swan? Have you been there since they retired?
Oh, yeah. Because they moved next door. So I would go and stay with them in their little retirement cottage next to the pub. So I was going to see the pub every year when I visited them.
And what's your order at the Swan?
What's my
order? Yeah.
Oh, God.
What do you get?
My order be?
Yeah.
Lukewarm beer.
Oh, that's my favorite. The bitter.
Yes,
Yeah.
the bitter. No, actually, I don't really have a taste for beer like lukewarm or otherwise. My order would be probably a gin and tonic.
Right.
But my dad would hoard ice like it was really expensive. So you get one tiny ice bucket on the counter, and the customers would get one ice cube each, and then you get a tiny little half moon crescent of a sliced lemon.
Right.
That would be your gin and tonic. Slightly warm, tiny bit of lemon, bit of gin, a lot of tonic.
How romantic.
Very romantic.
Yeah,
in a glass that was possibly a little bit sticky.
You're really selling it, yeah.
I'm selling it, right?
Had lipstick prints from the previous patron.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you were never tempted to go into the pub business yourself?
They wanted all of us to take it over. I was the youngest of four, so they went down the list. So as we all reached maturation, I think we all got the offer to take over the business, and we all solidly rejected it.
And where did all of the siblings go to?
So my brother became an estate agent. My older sister became an estate agent. Older brother.
A realtor.
A realtor.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
My listeners are American. They don't understand.
Thank you for
English.
The instant translation.
Luckily, I speak British. Yeah.
Thank you for that. You said Lou like you were born to it. By the way,
I was in London. I told you my daughter graduated from the Royal College of Art there, and I was in London, and she said nobody says Lou. I'm like, really?
That's not true.
Well, I can't imagine that she was just busting my chops.
Well, maybe they say loo at home, but when they're out in polite society, they might say toilet.
That's what she said.
Yeah, but you say loo at home.
Ask for the toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Loo is more casual, like you're in someone's home. And
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Anyway, two realtors.
Two realtors, and then my middle sister, worked as in administration, as an admin. Yeah.
And are they all still in England somewhere?
Yeah, they're all still in England. They're all in different parts. My older sister's in Wales. My older brother is in sort of Midlands, and the sister that's closer in age to me is in southeast England.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're all kind of dotted around the country a little bit.
Where in southeast England?
Do you know Kent, Sussex, kind of Winnie the Pooh kind of area?
I was
around
just
there.
down in Bewley.
Well, where's Bewley? That sounds familiar.
Down there, it's a beachside community, sort of southeast.
Hampshire? Is that Hampshire?
Maybe.
Yeah, so that's a little west of where my sister is.
Okay.
Yeah, so she's just kind of, you drop down from London. She's directly south of London.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty.
And do you keep in touch with the siblings?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Do you have group Zoom calls with them?
We do group WhatsApp. We don't really do the Zooms.
WhatsApp's just as good.
Just as good.
That's so sweet. is an interesting. It sounds like an interesting childhood that would build a certain camaraderie amongst the siblings who had all gone through it in this labyrinthine, like electrical nightmare of a pub.
Yeah, I am making it sound worse than it was. It was because it was so rambling and sort of like it was hard to sort of like navigate your way around. So when people used to come and stay, they got very confused that there might be 2 or 3 stairways to the same bedroom.
Right.
It was a bit like that. But what that affords you when you're a kid is that you can have a lot of privacy, and you can also sneak people in and out a little bit when you've got like two stairways to your bedroom. So also in my bedroom, there was a boarded up hole in the wall, which my parents said had been a smuggler's tunnel, where barrels of brandy would be smuggled up the River Severn, and then they'd be wheelbarrowed into our house and then through this corridor to the church for people that were avoiding paying taxes or I don't know what, on booze, on liquor.
That was boarded up in your room?
In my bedroom. So that was quite magical, even though this building was like, as you say, like a electrical kind of nightmare.
Well, that's sweet that it was magical, because right away I was like, oh, right, that's where like the devil enters the room and the monster and, Freddy Krueger, right? So you never had that relationship to the boarded up place, thinking, oh, this is where the witches live.
No, I never ever thought that. I never ever thought this was like a scary...
Yeah.
But I think that it would have... I think when I had friends to stay the night, I think they were pretty scared because the boards would creak and I would say, oh, yeah, there's a hole there where the smugglers... And they'd be like...
Did you ever go in there? Did you ever see what was behind the boards?
No, it was there were boards and then it was concreted. It was concreted over, but you could see there was like a thing.
It sounds like an Edgar Allan Poe story.
It does, doesn't it?
Did you ever hear sort of a heart beating behind all of that?
Never heard a heart beating. Okay, never heard any knocking either.
But scratching.
No scratching. Just a little bit of Morse code every now and again.
Yeah, tick, tick, tick.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice. I hope it didn't just ruin your whole youth for you with my skewed interpretation.
Yeah, thanks for that.
But yeah, I'm thinking back to this point that it sounds like an interesting, slightly eccentric, and childhood with not an overabundance of creature comforts and things that you had to figure out the light switch and all the staircases and whatnot. And what I'm thinking is that probably breeds a certain camaraderie amongst the kids who grew up with that stuff.
I think it could. I think it can also... My mum always used to say, like, pub kids are tough kids. So there's that element to it. I think only looking back do you realise that your childhood is eccentric. What do you have to compare it to, right? So I had a girlfriend at Goldsmiths, we went to university, and she was a can-can dancer when she was a teenager. Right. And she had both her parents were artists, and she'd lived on an Edwardian disused railway carriage in the middle of marshland in Suffolk. Wow. So to me that seemed pretty eccentric, but then she thought that my childhood was probably pretty eccentric too. So I don't, when you're kind of in that, you don't really think like, wow, this is really eccentric, I'm living in an Edwardian train carriage. Or a room with a smuggler's tunnel kind of in the one corner.
But now you're out of it. Have you ever discussed that on WhatsApp with your siblings? Like,
no,
our childhood was a little bit unusual.
We don't actually go that deep. It sounds really weird. I think for the longest time, we have been the sandwich generation, like with kids, but with older parents. Right. So that is mostly what we've discussed as a group of siblings. Like, what are we going to do about mum? What are we going to do about dad? Like, we don't really have that. We haven't really had that luxury of like sitting and talking about that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. The other thing as well is, I would say, and this is where I think Americans, or certainly my experience of Americans and Brits, have differed in that my American friends will go down that deep rabbit hole that Brits tend to not go down. Brits will say like, how are you? Good. You say to like an American, how are you? And they'll open up a little bit more and they'll be a bit more emotional and less guarded.
Sometimes.
I don't feel that we do that in my family. I feel like when we get together, we talk about, weirdly, pubs that have opened and closed in the neighbourhood. That seems to be all we talk about. Right. Remember the Dog and Duck? Oh, they've got new owners now. Like that's kind of what we talk about.
The Dog and Duck. That's the pub name I like.
Yes, the Dog and Duck. Or like the Railway Inn or whatever. And like, oh, there are so many pubs in towns in England because, as you know, we are a nation of functioning alcoholics, right?
Yeah.
Cheers.
Great.
By the
Cheer.
way.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks again for the paper plane.
You're welcome for the paper plane. So, yeah, we don't really sort of have those deep and meaningful conversations as Brits. It's a cultural phenomena, I think.
Right. Brits. I forgot about that part.
Yeah. It's the funny accent didn't register with you.
I didn't. I'm not as sharp as I pretend to be. But listen, we're going to move on. There's so much more stuff to talk about. But before we leave your career that you, quote, retired from, you were one of your credits, you were producer director on Most Evil.
Oh, yeah.
A science documentary for the Discovery Channel.
Yeah.
And just the title alone, I'm like, oh, Most Evil. What's that about? Was it about the people who lived behind the boarded up hole in your bedroom?
It should have been, shouldn't it? No,
Yeah.
these were clinically, like, deranged. This was basically, it was like I would say a pseudoscience documentary series where we had a forensic psychologist who practiced at Columbia who had this kind of like scale of like degeneracy, and he would like, he'd score like, Dharma a 10 and then somebody else would only get a 2,
Degeneracy. And was there an appeals form for somebody else to be like, wait
Dharma
a minute?
I think Dharma would have been pretty happy with his score. I feel like some other people might have been unhappy and wanted to appeal.
Well, the son of Sam might be like, why am I
why
a 7?
am I 2? Yeah,
What
why
the
am I
hell?
6.5?
Yeah.
Why didn't I get a 7?
How can I appeal?
Yeah.
So that sounds like kind of a fun thing if you're into that kind of stuff, which many people are.
Yeah.
A surprising amount of people are
They
into
really are.
serial
And,
killers.
the weird thing is it's mostly my demographic, like sort of middle-aged women that dig that kind of
sure.
stuff. It's very disturbing to me. This show was not fun to work on. I had to interview a serial killer in a jail in New Mexico.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it was pretty intense.
I'll bet.
I had to interview convicted, sex criminals, yeah.
So for most of the things that you worked on, are they available like on YouTube? Like old episodes can still be found?
I don't know, honestly.
Right.
I've never really... probably Most Evil you could watch. History Detectives you could watch. Some of these shows, yeah, I guess they're all available online in some shape, form or other. Like if you're an archivist, you could probably dig them up. YouTube tends to have like everything, doesn't it? So I'm
So
sure...
much stuff.
Yeah, it would be on there.
And so when you look back on that, was there like a favorite project?
I knew you were going to ask me this.
Yeah, I know. I'm so predictable.
No, I did actually think, like, in my sort of like dotage, my memory is not as sharp as it once was, because I remember like half of the shows that I made and worked on. I wouldn't say there was one favourite, but I think that the things that I preferred to work on were more of the observational documentaries where you don't really do this so much anymore, but you would go and live with, say, a family for 6 months, or you go and live in a town for 6 months, and then you would just kind of like embed a little bit, but not in that sort of like CNN way. Like it was much more of a sort of a friendlier embedding, and you get to know everybody in the town or in the factory or wherever it was that you were, trying to get to know people. And that was sort of like the old school observational filmmaking tradition where you would, you'd be getting to know someone super well, and some of those people I'm still in touch with because I was, became like friends of the family almost. When you're hanging out with people to that extent. There was a sort of a really nice sort of gentle quality to that sort of filmmaking where nobody was being exploited. Everybody was having a good time. It was sort of like that old school tradition of storytelling where you didn't feel like you were exploiting anybody. And
you were laughing behind the backs of the people you're interviewing.
Well, I mean, some
you
of
see a lot of.
I never really did that, but I definitely worked on shows where, let's say, you would craft things, you would reconstruct things a little bit.
Right.
Sometimes, I mean, never in a consciously dishonest way, but there was definitely a little bit of crafting going on, a bit of producing going on.
Sure.
Which you're kind of doing in an observational documentary format anyway.
Yeah.
But, for example, I can give this as an example because the person that I was producing was a convicted serial killer, right? So she,
Right.
The question of whether I was doing a good or bad job as a producer is slightly moot. I remember setting up this interview to interview this female serial killer in prison in New Mexico. And we knew the parameters of the interview that we got with her, and I had the cameraman turn over to get a shot of her walking down the corridor. And she'd specifically asked for privacy, so she didn't want her other cellmates to know that she was being filmed. So I kind of knew what I was doing then. And then the interview, she was super angry throughout the interview, which sounds really awfully dishonest, but let's not forget she was a convicted serial killer. So yeah, not an awful lot of sympathy there from me, but
Right.
I mean, that's the kind of evil methods of filmmaking where you're going to get a bit of a reaction from someone.
Right. But but also the act of editing itself is sort of skewing the story.
Exactly.
So, So when you look back, are there stories or shows or documentaries that you wanted to do that still are in your mind? Like, I wish I could have done that.
Oh, yeah.
No?
So many. So many. I mean, I feel like God. Now I'm sort of blanking on the ones that I really like. But I like the stories that are the documentaries that are observational.
Right.
Like that. I'm trying to think of the ones that I've seen that I've really liked
Was
recently.
lesbians behaving badly observational?
Lesbians behaving badly was observational. Yes.
Oh my God.
I was the token straight girl on that crew, which was fantastic. It was really great. Yeah, it was really nice working with all women. It was really nice. It was really good fun, and they were, partying hard and going on wet pussy parties. And am I allowed to say that? Sorry, too late. I've said it. Anyway, that was a really fun show to work on.
Right.
Yeah, really fun.
And what was the premise of that show?
To just show women having fun and being naughty and it not always being kind of like uni lad kind of male.
What is uni lad?
Uni lad is this it's this kind of social media page which is the university lad, which is the American equivalent would be like bro culture. Like
an educated lager lout?
I mean, educated with a very small E, lager lout, definitely capital L, capital L.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this was nice. This was like gay women kind of snogging. Do you know what snogging is?
Sure. I love snogging.
Kissing. French kissing. So,
Sucking
seeing women snogging on telly is great, right?
Right. And that
lovely.
That was 1999.
Which was quite something.
So there was not a lot of that.
Not an awful lot of snogging on British TV between same-sex couples at that time.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now, and you said you were the token straight woman.
On the crew, yeah.
And everybody, I'm guessing, knew that you were straight.
Yeah.
And so I'm guessing at that point, for the first time in your adult life, you were in an environment where you're not getting hit on by anybody. Yeah. Yeah.
It didn't quite go like that. There was a little bit of a flirtation.
Uh-huh.
Because why gay women don't just flirt with gay women, right?
I guess.
Everyone's a little bit fluid, right? We're all a little bit fluid.
Sure.
So, yeah, there was definitely some flirtation, but it wasn't sort of like, I don't know, it's not as bad when it's women flirting with you and you're working. It's not as bad as when it's men, like your male boss flirting with you. That's kind of less comfortable. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it was... Are you saying, was it a flirting-free zone? Absolutely not.
Right. I wasn't thinking flirting, which
Oh, what were you thinking? Just hassle, work, kind of
yes.
sexual harassment kind of thing?
Yes. Which, honest to God, I mean, I hate to say this, but, in an environment with men, it's almost always at least borderline sexual harassment.
Yeah.
And often just outright, no, that's illegal.
Right. Yeah, no, it was nothing like that.
Right.
Yeah. It was just fun.
Right.
Yeah.
What a treat.
Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of stretching into different positions, how did you... I know. Can we cut that out later? How did you get into Pilates?
So the bit where I mentioned that TV production was kind of long hours and I wasn't seeing my family, etc., etc., I was doing a lot of Pilates after I had my kids.
And so that was up here, you're doing Pilates?
I was doing Pilates everywhere. I was
Okay.
doing it at mostly studios in the city. But I've done Pilates up here. I've done Pilates in Hudson. Like, I just love doing Pilates.
Why did you start? Had you been doing yoga or?
No, was not a big yogi. I just had 2 kids and just felt like, this may come as a shock to you, Norm, but when you have 2 kids, your body kind of changes a little bit.
Right.
And not for the better.
Oh,
So
my body's the same.
you look great, by the way.
Yeah, thanks.
You look great. Well done. So I just started doing Pilates, and then a couple of girlfriends and my then husband said, "You're spending all this time doing Pilates. Why don't you switch and just teach Pilates?" So that's what I decided to do. So I had 3 studios in the city that I really liked going to, and I asked the 3 instructors, "Hey, where did you learn to teach?" And coincidentally, they'd all gone to the same school, which is a slightly granola-y school, which suited me down to the ground, which was the Kane School in New York. So it's very much based on anatomy and biomechanics. So I went and I spent a year there learning how to teach.
Now, both of those are physical things. What about sort of the emotional or intellectual or spiritual end of it? Is there that as there is with yoga?
No,
No.
not at all. So
'Cause
I do
Wikipedia said there was.
Wikipedia said there was. Wikipedia lied.
Yeah, it's a type
Wikipedia
of mind-body exercise.
So there's definitely a mind-body exercise. You cannot. So that bit is right.
Oh, okay.
That bit is totally right. So you can't tune out when you're doing Pilates. It's not like you're just moving your leg up and down. You have to think about the breathing. You have to really focus. You can't just phone it in.
Right.
So Wikipedia is right about that. But it's not. It doesn't have that kind of woo-woo-ness of yoga.
Gotcha.
It's also not so much stretching. It's more strengthening, and the Pilates that I do is more focused on, a lot of my clients are rehab clients. So I've got, D1 lacrosse players with injuries. I've got youngsters with Lyme disease that I teach. I've got a client who's 103, everyone in between. But they all need and want to move, and they should, and they, and they do. But they want to do it safely. So the training that I did is, if you came into me and you said, "I've got a herniated disc L4, L5," and you're waving at me like you do.
That's me, yeah.
So you could go and do a group Pilates class, and you may not come out of it feeling so great, because in some situations, instructors cannot be hands on everybody. And also some people are not trained in how to move people that have injuries. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be more focused on that rehabilitative model,
Right.
rather than just getting people fit and looking great on their wedding day. That's not the kind of Pilates that I want to teach. I think it's valid,
Right.
but that's not really... I mean, I can do that, and I do have clients that want and do that.
So if people wanted to find you to hear more about Pilates, how would they find you?
So
Your website?
I teach in New York City 3 times a week, and then I also teach in Rhinebeck. And my website is upstatepilates.com.
Upstatepilates.com.
Yeah.
And
Upstatepilates.com.
that brings us to the end of the hour. Emma Davies. Emma Davies, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Norm. This was so much fun.
What a treat. Everybody, thanks for listening. Have a happy Friday and a great weekend. Thanks, Jen Hammoud, for being the engineer on this program. And thanks again, Emma Davies.
My pleasure.
Upstatepilates.com.